All right, welcome back to Lesson Plans to Laces. This is episode 4. We're titling this one Mythbusters, and we got a great one today. My name is James Alidor, and I am joined by my wonderful co-host, Mr. Guzman. Mr. Guzman, tell everybody where they can find you once again.
I am Mr. Guzman. I am a special education teacher in Los Angeles. I go by the name of Teacher Heat on all social media.
Yeah, and like we said earlier, I am James Alidor. I am a former high school teacher. As of this May, I'm former. We'll get into that in a little bit, but you can find me at It's Jalidor across all social media platforms as well. Goes 4 episodes. This is our fourth one, and we've had kind of a journey, yeah, so far. We've done first day of school, where we talked about what do you do on a first day of school, what's your fit, what is the deal, how do you set expectations. Then we went into some blind ranks, and I like how you brought some heat with the West Side Gun Sauconys. I've
Yep.
definitely gotten some heat in my house about that because my wife doesn't like that shoe, but she definitely thought I was a little mean on Saucony. She's glad that I don't have it, but she definitely thought I was a little bit mean. So I guess I got to start coming correct.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. I mean, I love that there's people that are holding us accountable. Like
Oh
that's
yeah,
just that's part of it, right? Um, you try to be as authentic as possible when you're doing these things. So, I mean, me saying that the Air Force just wasn't a big thing for me. That was just me being honest. Like, am I supposed to know all this stuff? Probably not, but it is what it is. I'm just gonna stay true to myself and where I come from.
oh for sure. And dude, it's that authenticity that I think actually makes like the sneaker game and to a degree teaching really cool because like everything that I have ever been told as a teacher, especially as I've gotten older in the game, it is about authenticity. And that's sort of like staying true to yourself and being able to be relational with students and let them see who you are. Right. I think the biggest success I ever had as a teacher started whenever I kind of came off that professor style of
Yeah.
teaching. Is that kind of similar for you too?
Yeah, no, 100%. It was like, I talk about the teacher he persona and how like I was basically that professor where I was like kind of coming in suited and booted and hey, you guys are going to listen to me because I'm older and wiser and know all that stuff and it didn't work out. It was I don't know if it because I was trying to fake it or whatever it is, which is probably true. But we're in a different generation now. Like, and that's something a lot of teachers just don't understand. Like, these kids are different. They're not the same kids that grew up a certain way and kind of, understood that there's authority in their teachers. There's some that you kind of need to prove it and build trust with them, and that's where we're at now. And I think that's what makes a good educator at this point.
Yeah, no, I would agree 1,000%. I like how you said it's about the students and they're not the same students of yonder days, right? I think the public forgets that because everybody has been through school at some point, right? Like everybody's been through a K through 12 for the most part. And I think that people, because they've been to school, because they've been a student, they have a vibe of like what a teacher should be. And for some people, they want that suited and booted teacher to do stand and deliver type instruction. They want that jumping on the desk, dead poet society type stuff. I got to be Robin Williams and change a kid's life. I got to be freedom writers and pull kids up by their bootstraps, even when they don't have boots on. Like I have to find a way to make that happen. And
Yeah.
man, that's just not the accurate point. So today's episode is titled Mythbusters, kind of for this reason, right? I wanted to talk about and bring our education podcast back to the forefront and talk about the internet, man. The internet to me seems like a place where teachers can't catch a break.
100%. I agree. I love that we're doing this episode because I mean it's probably going to be an episode that's one of our most like controversial episodes because of the what we're going to talk about right now. But I agree. There's like it's just hard to catch a break in today's like I would say zeitgeist because DMX was talking about how you're such an intellectual. He's like like I know he's smart because he uses words I haven't heard in like years, but in the current like climate and this is going to be probably something that's kind of teetering on political because that's just where we're at. Like a lot of the times teachers catch flack for things like that. But in this climate, you just don't. You're like your head's always on the swivel as a teacher, like, and most of the time you're not even really doing any of this stuff. You're just getting that kind of like blame for other people possibly doing it, what you see, misinformation, like it's all over the place.
Yeah, no, and some of it might be personal trauma from something that happened to them when they were in school, right?
Yeah.
I've had plenty of parent conferences where parents are coming in and they're nervous because of something that happened maybe 5 years ago to their student, or that happened to them when they were a student, and they just want to make sure that everybody's on the same level, right? Like that everything is understood. And so I kind of have some sympathy for some of that, but some of it does not come from a place of trauma, in my opinion. It can be kind of from left field, and it ends up feeling a little bit personal sometimes. Although rule number one of teaching is don't take it personal.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just this year when I started, I like to build relationships with my parents because if you got the parents on your side, it's very easy to teach. I don't need to really like threaten you because I know your parents. I'm building such good rapport with them. So, the beginning of the year, I'm a new teacher at the school and I called every parent. So, I'm calling them like, hey, I'm your son or daughter's new teacher. My name is Mr. Guzman. This is what I do. If you want to come in and talk. You could do that. You could do, I'm trying to build all this trust. And I call one parent and she just lays into me. This is like
Ooh.
the second day of school. Like she's laying into, I'm like, what's going on? She's like, well, I didn't like the last person. I'm like, but that's not me. Like this is my second day. It's like, well, I didn't like the way they did this and they did this. And I'm having to take the brunt of this thing that they should have talked about last year. So now I'm there and she's like, I like this, I like this, I don't like the way they did this. And I'm sitting there like, can I just do my job? Like, you know, I understand that you're advocating for your son, but you don't know my method of teaching. You don't know what's going to work or not. I know you're telling me that this has worked with other teachers, but I've never even met those teachers. I wouldn't be able to tell you how they taught. The only thing I could be is me and let me work. And if it doesn't work, we could come back to it. But the second day, I'm already getting yelled at for other people doing whatever it is they did. So I'm on the phone just like, I can't believe this is happening. I've never had this happen before. Um, so there's ways like that where you talk about like trauma or whatever it is, you get it all the time.
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy that it's on day 2, but I would rather it be on day 2 than day, like, 102, where this has been
Yeah.
simmering for, at that point, almost 2 quarters of a year, like, half a year. I would so much rather it be then. I like that that you call early on. That's a massive, underrated trick. I started doing something similar a few years ago. This is a massive trick. I think that if anybody in education is listening, this is huge. First of all, phone calls are huge. I think that's a massive one. Good phone calls, meaning I'm sure you call for all reasons, right? You're not calling just because Johnny got in trouble that day. Maybe Johnny did something super nice and or super well, and you're like calling to compliment, right?
Yeah, no, I always have. That's why I do this call, and I tell them if I'm calling, it's gonna be for two things: either they did really well and they're doing amazing, or I need your help and it's time to go. But other than that, I'm not calling for anything else. I'm not calling for little things. These aren't like, oh, he or she cursed me out. I'm not calling for that. That's not big enough for me. If I'm calling, it's a big deal. Either they did something amazing, or they did something very. We need to get on top of this. Um, you don't know what it's going to be, but I'm generally also at the gate, letting them know that they had good days because you also need the kids to trust you, right? And if you're always telling parents that oh, he gave me the middle finger, and it's like, dude, they're not going to trust you because you're always telling them something bad. So I like to definitely tell them good things, and I'm going to find the good things so that I can get the kids on my side. But it's never going to be for something small when I call them for like behavior and generally I don't have to because that's probably one of my strongest uh, like I'm just really strong in behavior management, so I generally don't have to. But yes, I'm out there sometimes. Not sometimes, actually, most of the time. I'm out there most of the time, letting them know like they're doing a good job, even if they're kind of not doing the best. Because in special education, it's just, are you better than you were yesterday, right? Like sometimes, we talked about this earlier. Sometimes doing a good job was, hey, he didn't throw a chair today. We're building, we're growing, right? But it's when you find those good things, the glass half full, that the students start trusting you, because most other teachers would have been out there like, oh, he didn't throw a chair today, but he still dropped an F bomb. And it's like, now the kid, like, you're gonna find everything, right? Everything wrong, and you're gonna give it to the parents. So um sometimes they just need some layups too, right?
I do like that you talked about. Well, first of all, calling it a layup is really peak because again, if the only time they hear from you, the parents, is that it's negative, yeah, they're not going to trust you, and that's 1,000% true. What I learned at the when my nieces and nephews were very little, I remember having to go pick them up from daycare one day when the oldest two were in daycare, and I remember the daycare worker was telling me, because I'm an uncle, hey, tell your sister-in-law to check her email. We sent home the weekly report. And I kind of filed that away. And eventually, when I told her, she explained to me that, yeah, there's a weekly report that comes home about each kid. And in her case, she had two. And I was like, well, what's in this report? And at the time, they were little, like they were two and under. So we're talking about like nap time, feeds, like that sort of stuff. So I kind of internalized that because my sister in law liked that information. And so I internalized that. And so the next school year, that fall, I decided I'm going to start making a weekly email about what did we do in class, what's coming up, what was going on at the school, and just kind of like a weekly reminder. And in spite of the fact that I'm running a podcast, I am not great on the phone. And so this was a really cool way that if I started it and kept it going and was consistent about the weekly update, then parents knew what was happening, and it kind of took away the need to have to catch up people on context for why Johnny is doing really well. Like, oh yeah, I remember that assignment 3 weeks ago that we talked about. Oh, he killed it. He did really well. And then we can move to the next step. So I learned that weekly communication, if not then biweekly, is really good. So teacher trick is definitely make the information available to parents and be out on the forefront, right? And maybe that stops some of the bad myths from coming through about, oh well, they didn't talk to me about my son or daughter's grade or things like that. We'll get into some specific myths in a little bit, but I think it stops what you were talking about, the negativity, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I use Class Dojo, and I was posting on that every day to every other day. Whether it was like, this is what's happening today, this is what we did, photos of the kids. Like if we're having spirit days, I'm like, hey, who's dressed? Let me take a photo. I'm posting it on there, just trying to be like, you want to be trusted, right? You want the parents to know who's with their teacher, um, all the time, right? Because you're with them all the time. So I would post on there, and I'd go talk to the parent. They'd say, "Oh yeah, I saw that post. Like, oh, I like what they're doing." Right? You get people more like into doing this stuff. You go from like having two kids who are part of Spirit Day to having like six, seven, eight. Then you're getting these massive pictures now because all the kids want to be in the pictures because they know they're going to be in the picture if they're part of that stuff. So, yeah, constantly keeping parents in the loop, but you have to be transparent. I mean, in special education, especially, like parents are always seeing all these negative things with like kids being abused or whatever it is, because those stories are going to the forefront, and you have to be very transparent and have parents understand that you're there to help their kids, because the minute they think you're not, that's when you start getting all this negative stuff. They have to be comfortable with who their teacher is. So you have to try your best to build that rapport early on, or else it's going to be very hard for you.
For sure. And that kind of breaks down the myth of the uninvolved teacher, right? If you make it part of your non-negotiables as an instructor to communicate with parents on the weekly, then it becomes a lot easier. That's how I had to treat that weekly email, was this is a non-negotiable in my week. I can't leave on a Friday until this is done. And until I have at least made that commitment to getting it done. I think one of the things that we'll talk about in the future is just what are the non-negotiables of a teacher. And I think that if you can make parent communication a weekly thing and a non-negotiable, then you can break down a lot of the hate and the myths that come on the internet. But what that leads to, man, like I said, summertime, teachers can't get a break. I don't know how your algorithms work, but my algorithms on Threads and on X constantly are education based, and sometimes it's teachers bringing up stuff, sometimes it's parents bringing up stuff. But generally, what I find And Goose, again, your algorithm might be different. I find that the teachers cannot catch a break in summer. There are tons of different just comments and threads that go for like hundreds of replies about teachers, and not all of them are positive. So I got to ask you, what do you think a myth is, or what do you think a public opinion is about teachers that might be invalid, and how can you correct the record on that?
Okay, so my first one, and we're gonna get off with a banger, right?
All right.
Um, my first myth is that teachers are trying to push political views, and this is a myth because all teachers are trying to do is educate kids, especially where I work at in the socioeconomic climate of where I'm at. We're trying to get these kids to read. Like we're like, they're 2, 3, 4 grade levels behind. There's no time to push political views. Like they don't understand how to read. How are you going to push political views? Right? Everyone's constantly talking about how teachers aren't good at their jobs because these kids are so low, but somehow we're going to find time to talk about politi- political views. Like we're going to get them on our political side. um, I've never been in a classroom where people are talking politics. I've been in classroom where they're talking about history and like the revolution, and that in itself is political. But never have I seen a teacher just straight pushing politics. Like we don't like this guy, and you guys should all be this because this is the real good side, and the other side is bad. I've never been in a classroom like that. I've never like done those things. And mainly it's because we are trying so hard to get these kids where they need to be that we don't have time for that. So I don't know where this whole thing came from where teachers are being political. I think a lot of where it gets misconstrued is when you're teaching like history and you start talking about like the first black president, which is historical,
Yeah.
and people are thinking you're pushing an ideological political view, which you're not. You're just teaching history, right? And as a teacher, you can teach a lot of things as long as they're hitting the standards, but people kind of see you pushing certain narratives, and it's never political. It's just about informing the kids. And again, it's this like informing where like the students are making their own opinions. That I don't know what to tell people if that's leaning them one way or another for their political views as they get older. That's really not on the teacher. That's more on them being who they are, right? Um, you can attest to this more than I can because you're in high school. Like as an elementary school teacher, and especially a special education one, I don't have time to be pushing political views. Like I'm trying to teach these kids their A, B's, and C's, right? And some of them are like 8, and we're learning A, B's, and C's. Where am I going to get the opportunity to do any of this stuff?
That's fair. And on my, I like how you talked about it. It's different between levels because at my level, I have seen some overt nudgings in some direction. But part of that is also, like you said, it's kind of who the teacher is. And it also, I think, is about how are people defining politics? Are you defining the simple existence of a mention of the first black president as political? Well, then that is a poor definition. And I think that we have to talk about that as a teacher to parent, right? That's not the case. The mere existence of people is not political. And to your point about pushing like candidates or we should like this or not, I don't see that happens at my level. I think what ends up happening is that as an English teacher, I had to be very careful about who I selected and often how many times ideology shows up in my room because for texts, there's definitely a political opinion and sway for some authors, right? They may not have written it in that text, but that author may have a reputation or that author may be controversial by themselves. And so I, especially at some of my more political locations, have had to make sure that I'm balancing my curriculum so that those accusations are not even accurate. And that doesn't mean that those accusations haven't come, but it does mean that at least I have the ammunition to go, no, I'm if you're going to argue that I'm biased in one direction or the other, here are the other 7 texts that balance the one that you're really upset about. And we can have that conversation. So I try to pick things that are skill based. And I think that's the difference between when you build a curriculum, is it like thematically based or is it
Mm-hmm.
skills based? I tend to build mine skill based and I try to pick texts that are interesting And that, in my opinion, like I'm trying to teach students about rhetoric and argument, is the message clear? It's less about what the message is for me as much as it is about, is the message clear, and then can we have a conversation about that message secondarily.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. But it just, and I also don't want to say that there isn't people out there like actually doing this stuff, because I don't know every teacher in the world or in the United States. I'm sure that there's probably somebody like, yeah, they're pushing their agenda or whatever it is. But as far as the ones that I know and that are around me, we do not have the type of time to be building curriculum or anything to get somebody to lean whatever way you think they're leaning. We are just there trying to educate these kids, and that is pretty much it at the end of the day. So I don't know why that myth is still getting pushed to this day, where it's like, oh, look what they're trying to do. They have a flag and it's the wrong flag, or whatever it is. Like, it's wild how people take these giant leaps over what teachers are doing, when in reality we're just trying to educate these kids.
For sure. And a lot of, like you talk about, what flags are present in the room. I think if you make your classroom a welcoming environment, that's not necessarily a political statement. I feel like that's supposed to be the point of a classroom. And whether you teach at a parochial school or you teach at a public school, no student should feel that they are not welcome in that class. That's not a political choice. That's a human choice. And I think that people that are upset about those sort of things absolutely are missing the forest for the trees. And that's where I think that myth kind of pervades itself, is that perhaps you do, like you said, you don't know every teacher, and neither do I. Perhaps there are some teachers out there that are ideologically bent and they catch the news, right? They're the ones that are out there. But I do know a lot of very good teachers, and anecdotal evidence doesn't go very far, but I know that there's tons of very good teachers who clearly their students do not know where they lay politically. And I think that is important. I know my students in the past at almost any site have tried to ask, especially in an election year. And the more that I can be directly down the middle and really not give them anything, then that's better. And the fact that they may not know how I lean politically personally, and that it never crosses professionally, I think is very important. So I like that myth. I'm with you that I think the myth is invalid for sure. I don't believe that teachers are out here uh, politicizing content. By the way, I think it would be very hard for some content to become political, right? Like, how do you make numbers political? I don't understand that one. Like that one would be wild to me. So if a math teacher has a way out there to somehow politicize angles of isosceles triangles, or somehow you can make calculus BC overly liberal or conservative, I would love to hear that information. That would be wild to me. That would be insane.
I, I'm telling you, I don't get that myth, but I don't know. It pops up all the time, right? Especially during like you say, um, uh, like when you vote, every, which is hard because you're basically doing it every other year, so it's always you're always in a political climate, right?
Mhm.
And then you never know what's gonna be the next political topic. So sometimes teachers are already kind of doing some of that stuff, um, like unknowingly, and it becomes like this hot topic, right? You're trying to make your classroom a welcoming environment, and all of a sudden the hot topic is like, a flag, and now they're
Mhm.
like, oh, we don't like that flag because it means this now, and you're just like, dude, that thing's been there for 10 years. Like,
Yeah.
how am I supposed to know it's bad now? Like,
Well, and for an English teacher, and I'll say this, and then we can move to the next myth. I've had to pick curriculum before, and in creating my own curriculum, I remember I've picked certain texts, and I remember there was one year I picked a particular text, and I knew it would be a little bit controversial because we were in an election year, and I knew it would be a thing. And I felt it was still a valuable text. It's in the canon. It's one of those that, like, everybody, when you hear a play, you would absolutely go, "Yeah, that's a valuable play to teach students." And so I had already marked and had already gone to admin about these are the potential potholes that could happen. And I did have a parent challenge it, but none of the 15 potholes that I had selected were the one that came through. And I was
exactly.
like, I was surprised. And actually, what was really good, and it was a good conversation, was it was a good opportunity to talk about how that was not in my intention at all. And I was able to showcase my lesson plans. I was able to showcase my planning. Oh, that's not where we're headed with this. So if that was your concern, let me assuage that, because that's not what we're doing here. I don't want those fears there. So yeah, it happens, and I think some people are a little bit more attuned to it than others. So they see something as overtly political when it wasn't even intended to be. So,
Hmm.
but I got one that I want to bring up on a myth. Okay, I see this one pop up all the time. It's the most prevalent myth on the internet for me. The most prevalent myth is that teachers get a summer vacation.
That
Let
was
me
my next one.
context. Yeah, let me contextualize here. So, people on the internet hate that teachers quote, and I'm putting scare quotes for those that can't see this, summer vacation. It's not a vacation. My take is that people don't understand a teacher's contract. Teacher contracts are 10 months, and we are technically not on vacation during summer. We're unemployed.
Correct. And I think to take yours further, it's not just that we're on vacation, but it's also that we're getting paid during it. Is
Absolutely.
is part of it. And even my wife literally just told me this, like, but you're getting paid. I'm like, no, we don't get paid for these days.
Yeah, this is money that we've selected to be stretched out over the 2 months, month and a half that we are unemployed. And I've likened it when people talk about this to me personally, because some people are bold. And I've had this conversation like personally with people where they go, oh, yeah, well, you're off of work during the summer. No, I'm unemployed. My contract allows for me to stretch the 10 months of salary that I get for 12 months. And it's a unique carve out in most districts and in most educational ones. And as a matter of fact, some teachers can select. I've been in a district where they did ask, hey, do you even want it during the summer? Would you rather receive your 10-month salary for 10 months? And that was an even
Upfront.
more
Yep.
stark reminder that we're unemployed during the summer. It's not a vacation. We may be, quote, off of work, but it's because we're unemployed. Our new contract begins in August or September for some people. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I just did a video, and one of the guys was like, "Oh, the way you guys could save money is by not paying you guys during the summer." It's like they don't pay us during the summer. That's not part of our contract. So I don't know how that's going to save money if they're already saving money by not paying us during the summer. So what I want to let people know is that we don't get paid for these days. Like, we're not working these days. They've been stretched over, like you said, right? But I don't know why people think that we're not working right now and somehow we're still getting paid these days. So it's already been stretched out to where we've already completed our assignment, and because we worked extra, right, during those 10 months, now we get it during these months where we don't work, but we're not getting paid for these days are non-existent in our check. We don't get paid for July 16th, right? I'm not getting like, oh, I worked this day, right? I'm getting paid for June 10th, and it just stretched out a little bit more. So they're taking from those days that we are working a little bit more money so they can give it to us in July. So it's like we're building up a saving throughout the year, and then they're taking from that savings and giving it to us when we're unemployed and not working. Um, we're not this isn't extra money.
Nah, absolutely. And what I typically do, what I have done in the past when this has come up in person, is I explain to people that let's play that game for a second. Let's assume that I am, quote, on a summer vacation. Are you mad because it's a perceived benefit that you don't get? Because your corporate job can offer bonuses. Teachers don't get bonuses. Your corporate job offers a corporate ladder that you can climb for promotions. Those don't exist in teaching. So are you mad that you see teachers enjoying being unemployed, watching Netflix shows, actually catching up because we have a guaranteed contract coming up in the fall that we've already signed? Or are you just mad that your corporate job does not offer you a requisite benefit that even comes close to this? Because I would argue this is a benefit to be, quote, unemployed for 2 months and to stretch it. But for some people, it's not a benefit. So I have found that when you relay it in that way to people, they kind of tend to understand it a little bit more. But it's definitely a myth, in my opinion. It's incredibly invalid, but incredibly pervasive on the internet.
Yeah, and just to go on. Okay, tigre, close the door, papa. And
Further proof, we're not off during summer.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't like I know people are gonna think that that's gonna mean that the job is cushy, right? Like, oh my goodness, they get the summer and then they get paid during it. The job is very, very hard. Like, let's not act like it's not, right? Just because people are good at the job, like me or yourself, that we're having a lot of fun while we're working, we're building these relationships, parents love us. That is not the case for every teacher. That is not the case for other teachers. Some teachers are struggling, and I would say the majority of them are having a hard time adjusting to teaching and doing things a certain way. So don't think you could just come in and be like, oh, well, I'm going to just go become a teacher. It is very, very hard, very stressful. You need a lot of education, a lot of education, at least when you're becoming a public school teacher like myself, right? You're talking to some of the most educated people that you're probably around. Um, we have to take numerous tests to become teachers, background checks, constantly updating all that stuff. So uh, don't think it's like this cushy job because we're making it out. Oh, these guys got sneakers and they're over here making a podcast during the summer, and it must be the easiest job. Like anyone could do it. That's not the case.
Nah,
It is.
not at
It takes
all.
very, very special people to be teachers, and even more special people to be good teachers. Um, and there's a lot of people. There's a lot of teachers who are having a hard time with that. That's kind of one of the reasons why I do the content. But don't think you're just gonna pick it up like, well, I'm just gonna go become a teacher because I want summers off. It's gonna take a lot of time. And once you start trying to do that, you start realizing that these teachers really earn all the things that they get.
For sure. There's always somebody when we do a faculty meeting that's, oh, why did you become a teacher? Somebody inevitably will always be like, for the summers off. And I boo that, I boo that person inherently every time because it's not really, it is not it is not a benefit. But to your point about the cushy job, it's not a cushy job at all. And I think people misunderstand that. I was explaining this to a couple friends who like first week of June were like, "Hey man, why don't you come hang out?" And I'm like, "Dude, you don't understand what the first 2 weeks of summer break or quote my unemployment look like. My unemployment, my summer, those first 2 weeks is like hello darkness, my old friend. I sit in silence. I watch TV. I try to decompress from the year because, especially for an AP teacher like myself, you have worked to get to that test. You have worked, and it ramps up. And so the end of my year, the end of my school year, I tend to take about 2 weeks. I don't talk to people. I don't do much because I need to decompress. I become a human again probably about midway through June. And that's really
Yeah,
when like content picks back up. I actually can breathe a little bit easier because the stress of getting everybody to the AP test is absolutely it's stressful. And I think any teacher that is doing their job, my principal actually said this, any teacher that is doing their job well reaches the end of the year with nothing in the tank. If you had
yeah,
something left over, you might have been holding back, and that takes time because I definitely held back some years early on in my career where I went into summer and was still energetic, and I was calling friends early in June. Maybe that's why they call me, but uh, maybe precedent has been set here. But the reality is that yeah, I learned how to pace, and so by year 18, I've learned how to pace it right so I can take that break.
yeah. And then, I mean, talk about the end of the year, but the beginning of the year, it's pretty much a sprint. Like you start up and you're going. Like there's no more like kind of getting your feet wet. When you start the year, it's an all out go until you're at the end of the year, right? And we have all these breaks in between there, but you're basically sprinting the whole time. Like you're trying to get these kids educated enough to take these tests or to do well and all that. You don't have time, so it's constantly moving. I mean, I did the one video about like don't call me during the school year because I basically drained my whole battery during the week trying to help these kids, and back and forth talking to parents and all that stuff. That in the weekend I'm just kind of slugging it out, right? Because I'm tired. My my social battery is drained because I'm out here trying to build rapport, get these kids where they need to be, and it isn't until the summer that you're maybe, hey, let's catch up, let's go do this, let's go do that. So the job in itself isn't cushy. I don't want anyone to get that bad impression. But if you want to talk myths, let's do a sneaker myth. Let's
Okay.
bring our sneaker expertise in it.
All right. So What is a myth then? Because we'll keep going with the invalid. The sneaker community has a lot of rules. And I know that people are listening to this. They may or may not be sneakerheads because I think our audience is kind of diverse. What's a sneaker myth that you find to be invalid on the internet?
So I was thinking about this, and I'm constantly going to Disney, and like I wear all these different shoes, and I kind of want to do a series where like if a shoe is Disney approved, which basically means it's a good shoe because I have really bad feet, and like at the end of the night, if I'm there, um, I'll be either dreading wearing that shoe or like, hey, that shoe kind of holds up. I might wear this. So my myth is that not every well let me stop. Yeah, would you agree with me and say that most Jordan 1s are uncomfortable?
So I will say yes to that. The highs are very uncomfortable because of the
Jordan
collar.
1 highs, yes.
Yeah, Jordan 1 highs are very uncomfortable to wear all day because of the collar. Lows, though, lows
No, I'm
actually are
talking
kind
about
of
highs. I'm
comfortable.
talking about highs. Jordan 1 highs.
Okay, highs are uncomfortable. Yeah,
Okay, and would you agree to me that most New Balances are comfortable?
yes, absolutely. The most cushy shoes that I have really ever come across.
Okay, so my myth is that most, all New Balances or most New Balances are comfortable. And my other myth are that all Jordan 1s highs are uncomfortable because I went to Disney and I went one day, it was in the morning, and we were there for like six hours, right? So it was a long day. And then I went another day with at night. So we were only there for about 3 hours. The day I went for 3 hours, I wore the New Balance 8070s, the Ama Maniers. No, no, not Ama Maniers. Aime Leon Dor.
Hmm.
So is it Aime Leon Dor? So I wore those, and those were, oh my goodness, my feet were killing me. It was 3 hours, and I was like, I don't think I can do that. They were just the materials were not the same as every other 8070. So where I was thinking that it was going to be a fine shoe to wear, it was absolutely the worst shoe to wear. And with the Jordan High, when I wore them for those 6 hours, I was thinking the complete opposite. I was like, man, I'm gonna be dreading it at the end of the day. Those were the Storm Blue Union Jordan 1s.
Okay.
And those shoes, because of the upper, how great that leather is, those shoes are so comfortable.
Oh,
So my myth is that all of them are uncomfortable because we don't know what materials are using a lot of the times. So some shoes can be very comfortable because of the materials they've put into the shoe.
that's something I didn't even consider, but it's 1,000% correct on your end that the materials make it work, right? That makes sense. So I wear a lot of Jordan 1 highs, and the only reason I know my number is because I made a reel at one point, and I had to actually count them out. I have 16 pairs of Air Jordan 1 highs. Okay, uh, tons of colors. I like to match. Again, we talked about this before. Loud colors are my thing, so I'll wear them all day to teach. But I don't. I have worn them all day on a trip, and they are not a 20,000 step shoe for me. I have actually like gotten blisters from it, but I can see that the materials might have been different because I wore a pair. They're a hilarious pair. They're the worst pair, I think, in a lot of people's opinion. They were they're called like the stash pocket ones. They have the pockets on the side, and they're made of a certain material. I'll flash them up here on the screen in a little bit, but they tore my feet up. They were not a good pair to walk in. But I can see though how the materials would matter. That's crazy though that New Balance was uncomfortable. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
no, I'm the same way. Like generally, if I'm going somewhere, I'm popping in a pair of New Balances, Sauconys, or any shoe like that. That's like the bona fide comfort. But when you have shoes, I have other 8070s that are super comfortable. You just think every shoe is comfortable. That's an 8070 because you've worn these other ones. But sometimes the material is going to make that shoe very uncomfortable, and you end up you end up regretting that choice. Um, I know with Jordan 1s, a lot everyone brings up the leather, right? Like what's the leather look like? And I have Jordan 1s where the leather feels plastic. And I know that shoe's gonna be uncomfortable because of that leather. It doesn't have any give. And, thinking that I'm not putting on Jordan 1s to go walk 10,000 steps. But when I did that day, I was like, oh, this is kind of a myth, right? I thought this was going to be a very uncomfortable shoe, and it's actually a very, very comfortable shoe.
Yeah, that's so funny. That's a good thing to point out. So I guess the correction of the myth is not that New Balances are comfortable, but that it's actually about the material, right? The material
Correct.
decides the comfort. Then, okay, because this is the thing, and we got to correct the myth, right? If the myth is incorrect, then we've got to correct it, and I like that. That's a good point. It's a good point to make. Man, I may have to try because I have a pair of Asics on today. I'm getting ready to go run around with my niece and nephew. I got a pair of Asics on, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I can challenge your myth with the pair of Jordan ones. I don't know that I can bring myself to do it today, but uh, but I'll definitely have to put this to the test because I got a pair of Jordan 1 lows that I can keep going. But maybe just I'll go get some highs. Okay, that's a fair point. All right. Well, you want to hear mine? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I hate the hate. That's a little bit redundant. I don't like that people hate on the Panda Dunk or the Adidas Samba simply because everyone wears it. So my myth is that a shoe doesn't deserve its hate simply because it's popular.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, because if you see there's a whole branch of content that's what's the worst sneaker ever made, and if you poll 10 people at a sneaker con, they're gonna go the Panda Dunk. The Panda Dunk is the worst. It's terrible. Everybody wears it, and part of me is like, that's the opposite. If everyone's wearing it, that means it's a good shoe. So it's not the worst
I
of all time.
100% agree. And I honestly don't like the type of content where you're focusing on negatives, but I understand why people do it because that's the thing that's going to bring people in, right? Constantly talking. Another one of the contents: shoes you shouldn't wear when you're 30, shoes you shouldn't wear when you're a dad. Get rid of these. You're too old. Like that type of content is always just rage bait, right? That's what they call the rage bait content.
Mhm.
That's what you're watching. But yeah, that's inherently like kind of an oxymoron, right? For it to be a bad shoe, but the best selling shoe of all time. Like at that point, would like the Air Force One that we talked about be a bad shoe? Like the all white, that's considered one of the greatest shoes ever, right?
Yeah,
But
and on that content, kids will always say, "Yeah, the panda's terrible," but they're always. I said 8 out of 10 will say the pandas are terrible. The other 2 out of 10 say all white Air Forces.
yeah, I'm at a point in my life where I honestly I don't like not that I did care, but I've never really cared what other people are into. Um, it's different for what are they? Different strokes, right? Different strokes for different folks. Like they're into their things. I've already brought this up here where I know that being a sneaker collector is weird to people, so we're just gonna stay in my bubble where I know you have your own thing. I'm not gonna talk down on yours because I have this weird one. Same thing with people's choices, right? I'm not going to talk about you liking Panda Dunks because that's just a preference thing. If you like them, you like them, right? I'm not gonna. It just comes off snobby when I'm like, "Oh, really? You would wear that shoe? That shoe's so trendy, and because of that, I don't like it." But everyone's entitled to their opinion.
It's funny that you said snobby on it because another sphere that I am deep into. I like brewery culture, and we went when I was very early on in my craft beer journey. I went to this particular brewery in Austin, and I had not really dived into styles or anything. And I was looking up on the wall. They had a bunch of T-shirts with the beer name on it. They had them framed, and I saw this particular one. I was like, "Oh, I'll try that." And the guy goes, "We don't make it anymore." I went, well, why don't you make it anymore? He goes, it was our best seller, and we decided we didn't want to do that. And I was floored. Like I think the look on my face at the bar threw him off because I was like, okay, man, well then what's your least popular beer that I guess I'll drink that? I don't understand.
They're,
And
they're
this was also
ramping up the least popular one.
yeah. And this brewery prized itself up until like 3 years ago. This brewery was like, yeah, we don't even distribute. We want people to come here. It's in the one of the most remote places in Austin with goat farms on it. And I was like, cool, man. Like I sought you out, but I'm one person. And now they distribute. Now they make stuff that people will buy and that it's popular. So I guess I say all of that to be like the hipster move is just kind of a bad personality. Like being snobby and being quote in the know is not a good personality trait. And it was really a turnoff. I have not been back to that brewery, and I go to Austin relatively often. I have not been back to that brewery, and it's hard. It would be hard for me to say that I have drank any of their stuff since then because it was just off putting, man. And again, if somebody's going to tell me in a comment that oh yeah, the Panda Dunk is the worst of all time or the all white Air Forces are awful, I probably don't want to be friends with that person because they're hating on it for probably the wrong reasons. Talk about material quality, talk about price point, talk about that stuff, but don't talk about oh it's popular,
But
right?
even
Like
then, we talked about a rubric, right?
yeah,
And that the rubric of the Panda Dunk hits everyone's like, we talk about a shoe that's insanely popular. It's a lot of people's rubrics. Like they really like that shoe. So I mean, it's a tried and true shoe.
yeah, and the samba throws me off for this too because it constantly gets hate as like the basic girl shoe. Every girl's wearing it. It's the summer shoe. It's the thing. And you played soccer growing up. I played soccer growing up. Still coached up until recently. Sambas are part of the culture. So like that's not even a snobby thing. That to me was like oh now football fashion has gone mainstream. That's cool. Like that's a good thing and it was a comfortable shoe. I was rocking Sambas not to sound like a hipster, but I was rocking Sambas like personally back in '08 and '09 because that's what I played indoor. So I would
Before
rock.
you were born, kids.
Oh yeah, there it is. Shoes you shouldn't wear after 41.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like the same thing with Vans. Like I'll be wearing a pair of Vans and then they'll be in the inn. They're like, "Oh, really? You're wearing like these trendy shoes?" Like I wear those all the time.
Mhm.
How am I supposed to know whether they're in or out if I'm just constantly wearing it, right? So you're getting all this backlash for like, oh, oh, really? But that's how you've always like dressed and styled yourself, right?
For
Like
sure.
you're going right back to the samba, and I'm going right back to Vans, and they're just like, "Oh, really? You would wearing the new school? That's such a like trendy shoe." Like, dude, I just picked this up. Like,
Yeah.
how am I supposed to know it's the in shoe? Like, we're literally constantly collecting shoes that, I don't even have to go buy a shoe anymore. I don't know about you, but I don't have to go buy shoes anymore. I already have the trendy shoe from like 2 years into the future sitting here somewhere. I just need to know what it is, and I could wear it.
Yeah.
But
You're not wrong.
as somebody who collects shoes, I'm gonna wear it regardless, and then they're gonna tell me that I'm the one trend hopping.
That's wild. You're not wrong. When I see something new drop and I'm like, I don't need that because I had it either the first time, which shows you how old I am, or I have something that's basically the same thing. So I don't need that, right? I actually, to kind of like correct this myth, I actually think when somebody wears a sneaker that is insanely popular, I think it almost validates them a little bit more because now they're kind of coming into our world, right? Like they're getting into fashion, they're getting into things that matter. And to me, I'm anti gatekeeping. I have made content on this left and right. I'm anti gatekeeping altogether. I'm not going to judge somebody for wearing a pair of Panda Dunks. Matter of fact, I'll celebrate it more so because that means that like, okay, you're in the know, like you're putting together a fit and even though it's a black and white shoe and it matches everything, that is the point. Like pop a fit off with a black and white shoe. Do your thing. Show what
Yeah,
you can do.
it's the teacher in us, right? Where we're like we're trying to be more inclusive to people trying to be part of the community. Where you see it as like, oh, they're trying to build rapport, right? They're trying to be more into the streetwear scene or coming more towards my side. So it's an easy way to build rapport, especially when your students say it, right? You go
Yeah.
talk to, like my student was wearing like Jaws, and I was like, oh, those are awesome shoes, right? And I mean, that's a way to build rapport. But am I going to go and like, oh, really? You're on the jaw train, dude? Like, wow, I would never be caught with a pair of jaws because they're so popular right now. Like, what are we doing?
I could not imagine being a student in your class showing you my jaw threes and you'd be like, loser. Those are
Yeah,
popular. Like
those,
my day would be ruined. I would go to fifth period math and be like, what is going on with my life? And I have a test. Today is the worst.
yeah, but I think that's where we come from like the educator background, where we're just like, no, we're not going to put anyone down. You can't. It's not part of our job. It's not in us to make people feel bad about who they are. We just talked about welcoming environments in your classroom. It's not our job to not be welcoming. It's our job to kind of, get people where they want to be. And so, yeah, I agree. I mean, that's so funny. I think yours is great too. Like, just how people will bash on it, but it's like one of the most successful shoes ever.
Right. For sure, though, if I go home and tell my mom that you bashed on my shoes, you better have sent an email to get ahead of that one. So you better have sent home, "Hey, Johnny had his jaws on, and I might have made fun of him just a little bit. Let talk." Yeah, you better get ahead of that email because you know
No,
that one's coming through.
I'm sending the email. Hey, don't ever send your kids with some trendy shoes to my class again.
That's
Understand the culture, please.
that is wild. That's wild. I love it.
But that's
Oh
how some
man.
people in our space would feel, right? Like, can can you imagine?
Oh no, I could not imagine. It's you know what's so funny though. I'll say this: I felt like I had made it as a sneaker teacher this particular year, and I'm not sure if these students will be hearing on this one, but uh, I had kids that would wear shoes that day, and they would actually like they don't have I was on a block schedule every other day. I would
Mhm.
have these students, and I had some students that on their day where they're not even in my building because they don't have English that day, they would find a way to come up and come show off their shoes. Like literally, I got kids knocking on my door, and I'm mid lecture, and I'm like, "What's going on?" I'll walk over, and they're like, "Hey, I got a pair of Jordan 4s on today." I'm like, "You don't have to whisper. You've already interrupted the class. It's fine." And those are fire. And so it would be a constant, or a student this year, a couple times in my class would be like, "Yo, what do you think of these?" And I think that's cool. That's when you've made it, man. Like to me, that is, it kind of breaks down the myth of like the indoctrination and like the political side of it. Like you've made rapport. And yeah, it's cool. I think that's
Yeah,
a neat way to make it as a teacher.
I had a student that again, this is how you know you've made it, right? Um he was a third grader, autistic. Remember, I gotta always say I'm a special education teacher. He was autistic, and his parents had sent me a message. Hey, he's wearing these shoes because of you. So he wore a pair of all white Air Force Ones, but he had customized them, right?
Okay.
Like he was so talented in art and drawing and stuff. So he customized them. So I thought it was the coolest thing ever, right? So I take a picture and I post it on my story, right? And I got these people that were in there like, dude, that shoe is awful. I'm like, the kid is 7, dude. Who cares? Like, this is him, like showing me that he's appreciating me as his educator and wanting to share some of my culture and things that I like. I'm not gonna say anything bad. And just to go off of, on a different tangent, it works the same with teachers. Like, I don't care what a teacher wears. If they want to be part of my community, you're the coolest teacher ever. If stuff doesn't match, if people think you're lame, I do not care. Being a teacher supersedes everything. And if you are like somebody that just wants to show who you are, I will never bash that. Like, ever. For me, you like showing us who you are is such a cool thing that, much like my student, I'm not in the place to be like, oh well, why would you wear that? And I can't do that because, you just didn't match accordingly. That is such a bad attitude to have.
For sure, but some people thrive on that. I am with you on the idea of like if you're a teacher and you have a thing, like more power to you. More power to you. Be part of that community. Also, who has beef with a 7 year old? That's what I need to know is what kind of people on the internet have beef with a 7 year old.
And
Uh,
even then, like, they know I'm a special ed teacher, so it's like, the kid is has some type of special need. Like, they're not the kids who need to be, um, you know, brought down a peg or two. They're the kids who need to be propped up 3 or 4, right?
yeah,
So yeah, but I knew I made it because he went and customized a pair of Air Force Ones to wear in my class, and I thought it was the coolest thing. So,
yeah,
much to you understanding you made it when people want to show you their shoes. There's other people that the same with me trying to show me theirs, and I think it's the coolest thing. And sometimes there's some of the most like they're old shoes, but they're cool shoes to them. And I'm not gonna tell them like, hey, these are kind of old or anything. I'm gonna say these are the coolest shoes I've ever seen in my life because I know they're trying to show me something that they're proud of, and that they want to be part of the Mr. Guzman they see wearing the different shoes at school. So I can't be part of that. Um, Panda dunks are the worst ones because I see a lot of panda dunks throughout the year, and I always say that is one of the coolest shoes I've ever seen. Like every kid is gonna get that because I know they need it because that's what they wanted to show me the shoe for.
Yeah, and that again to break down myths, like that's the point of what today's episode really is to point out that no, not all teachers are sitting here eating Doritos and Pop Tarts during summer while we're cashing a paycheck. We're not sitting here indoctrinating kids to vote right or left or to not vote at all. We're people, and the goal the entire time has been to do well for your student, and that's the thing that I think people on the internet tend to miss is that there's this image of us a certain way. And I do think that the content you do and the content that other sneaker teachers do, the fact that it's public, I think, is a good thing to break down some of those perceptions, right? Like the idea that it's oh, you have to be the sage on the stage, the professor, right? I think it's a really cool way. And yeah, no, Mr. Guzman is not indoctrinating. Mr. Alidor is not bringing this up to try and force you into an ideological corner. No, we are trying to do what is right for students, and I think people forget that. So, but yeah, today's been great, man. I love this breaking
Yeah,
down myths.
this was a great pod.
Yeah, breaking down myths. So we're gonna go ahead and break this down, ladies and gents. Once again, don't forget your teachers are there for your students, and if you are a student, your teachers are people. Talk to them. Be kind. That's the point, man. They're there for you, and they're there to try and be relational and get you across the line. So, uh, with that, we're gonna go ahead and sign off, everybody. This has been Lesson Plans to Laces. I am Mr. Alidor.
I'm Mr. Guzman, teacher heat.
And we will see you guys next time. Peace.
Peace.
Appreciate it.